Okay, one more on Concord, and first I got to talk about how you can get blocked by me very quickly, and then I'll talk about my theories of probably, maybe, kind of what happened for Concord. So first, I'm not even gonna. I was gonna originally show them. I'm not gonna show them. I don't care. I'm not gonna give them the light of day. But if you are celebrating the death of developers and a game failing, you don't love games. You don't like games. Just stop. Like there's a whole movement of people who don't play games or don't play modern games who hate games and who hate the existence of modern games and are doing everything, including trying to pass legislation to stop modern games from being made. It is like the weirdest Gamergate. Now, some of them are open about, like, they think it's woke. They'll ignore other woke games. That Helldivers 2 was woke, but then that succeeded. But this is a woke game, and it failed. So tiring. If you say woke seriously to me, I'm just going to block you. But I blocked a whole bunch of people. Blocked them on TikTok. It's nice because I can block you, and you know it. On YouTube, you just don't show up in the comments anymore. And you just keep screaming and threatening me, and I just don't know you're doing that anymore, which is weird and I don't like. I wish you could be clear, like get lost. I delete your comments, but then when you post new ones, I don't see them anymore. Yeah, it's not perfect. But you want companies and developers to learn things. Like there's people talking about like dancing on the grave and that they should chase these hacks out of the industry. These hacks, they made a good game. But there's a whole bunch of other problems, the reason why the game didn't succeed. But they made a good game. What you want them to do is make more good games, right? And then there was somebody was making a joke of like, well, one of the problems is that every publisher wants to publish, Fortnite. But here's the deal: is Fortnite wasn't Fortnite, right? Fortnite was a co-op only builder game that didn't succeed. And instead of being chased out of the industry and people dancing on their graves, they just kept at it because they had enough money they could keep at it. They saw PUBG and they said, well, let's try this battle royale for our game. And then all of a sudden that game went from being something that was not successful to being super successful and being one of the most popular games in the world. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. These people would say to me in that response, well, I don't like that game. That game sucks. Yeah, good. Don't play games, right? Like seriously, I'm so tired of this movement against games. So tired. Don't try to dress it up that you love games so much. Play games. Someone asked me in the comments, as an older developer, do I still play games? Yeah, I play every single day. Every single day I play games. Every week I play something new. Every single week. Like, you have to understand because it's trends and new things going and I'm excited about it and I like it. I like games, right? This is the thing I like. So sorry. Hell, I'm even excited for the new Madden. Maybe. The Browns are such a mess. They're such a mess last year. I can't play Flacco. I can't. All right, let's ignore that for a sec. So what happened to Concord outside of the game? Because it isn't the game's fault. It's Sony's fault. So now you have to trace back a few years, right? So Jim Ryan is CEO of Sony, and he's like, hey, we need to embrace games as a service. That's the future of the industry, ignoring that was the present day of the industry and the future will be different. It's always different. And so he made some investments. He made Bungie, and we saw the tons of layoffs that just happened there. And he also bought the studio that made Concord. Now, the CEO changed. Jim Ryan is no longer the CEO. Well, what happens then is the new CEO is like, well, that's not my strategy. We're just going to dump this out. We already bought it. We might as well just release it. But we're going to do no marketing support. Now, marketing support comes in a lot of different ways. One is raw money. You'd be like, hey, you worked on Left 4 Dead 2. You didn't need any marketing money. Tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars we spent marketing that game. From TV ads to billboards to buses to me traveling the world to holding events to flying press in. Every game I've ever worked on when I was at Valve, we spent a ton of money on marketing. It is just the way you have to do it. Sony, for Concord, didn't even include it like in their summer fest of like, they had games you could play. They didn't even have that as one of the games. So they clearly were just like, we'll let it out. Because I'm going to guess they were thinking, hey, this is like the old days. I've joked about this with Valve. You get 100,000 players for free. no matter what you release at Valve, you're going to get 100,000 players and 100,000 people to buy a headset, Steam Deck, whatever. It's everyone after that that's hard. But now Sony doesn't quite have that, because Sony has a couple of problems. One, on Steam, they're just another game on Steam. On their own platform, they've messed up their own platform, where it's really hard to see new, big, hey, buy this games. I remember back in the day, I wanted to buy GTA 5 for my PlayStation, 3 or 4, and I couldn't find it in the store. I had to go move around the store until I saw an ad for it. And then I clicked on the ad, and that's how I bought it. They monetize their site for developers versus where Steam, it's all just about how well you're doing, and it pushes it. And so they can't even just push you forward and push their own stuff on in a way that makes sense and is discoverable by players, because players just aren't used to finding games that way, and that hurts them. So they don't have any of the marketing in, they don't have a way to communicate and deliver the game. But what they're probably hoping is, hey, it's done, we'll release it, and it won't be a giant hit, but it'll be a solid double. It'll do okay. But this is the thing I've talked about a bunch. There are no doubles anymore, right? Those just don't exist anymore. So it is all or nothing. And like the people gleefully excited that this game is failing and getting pulled are part of the problem, right? Because instantly they see any weakness, they're going to go on their forums, they're going to go on everywhere they can and just badmouth the game. And that kills any buzzes the game can generate. It kills anything positive that can come out of the game. And it starts sinking the ship, because instantly people are like, it's got to have 50 million concurrent users. Otherwise, it's a dead game, right? How many successful positive games are being called a dead game, right? And it's really hard. It's really hard for independent developers. It's almost non-existent now to be able to do a shooter. And there's some that have just recently released that are really good, really fun, really struggling. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because while, again, the kids will dance on the grave because they don't actually play these games and they're excited that they can call things failures and feel good about themselves. The reality is this is going to mean less games try things, less games enter the market, and we're going to see less interesting things trying to do something different, because they just don't think there's a space for it and for that experimentation to be embraced in any way by the community. And that worries me. That worries me a lot. I've talked about it before of like, I just really think the middle is dying of the industry, where you have to have these monster hits or it's just dead. And well, maybe for indies like my size, we should go back to making single player games, because then no matter what, you can have that experience and you kind of trade that time. But then do people play these anymore? And that's kind of what Sony's looking at, right? And Sony's got the money to make monster giant single player games like Spider-Man, but they cost so much money to make. Right, and that's the problem. That's the kind of the hard spot that Concord got trapped between, was we don't want to spend money on this anymore. It probably should have been a free game, but we really don't have the ecosystem to do those kind of games. We're not really good at them. Even Bungie failed. Like the Bungie failure had to scare the hell out of them. Like this was the team that knew how to do it, and they failed at doing games as a service. Ends up games as a service is hard, and doing games as a service now is really hard. Like, it's easy to say, yeah, make your game free to play. But getting the numbers then that would then justify the free to play is really hard. So it is a hard, interesting time right now in the game industry. And Concord is just the one that got squashed the hardest right now. You're going to see other games like this. You're going to see a lot of games never get released, because there's going to be a lot of publishers, a lot of investors that are just like, yeah, we're not going to throw any more money at this. This can just die. And children will celebrate that because they're morons. I just want a quick addendum. I forgot to also just mention of like those. The reason why you want those doubles is because those doubles are what can grow. Either they grow in the sequel, or they grow in the actual thing, like Rainbow Six Siege. I know I've used that example a bunch, but that's a really good example of something that didn't knock it out of the park at start, but was given enough space to grow, survive, and become something that now people play a ton of. But also sequels, right? And so when we instantly kill these things and we don't learn anything from them and they don't have enough chance to grow and get an audience, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.